Over the past week or so, you've probably seen all over the internet a new wave of hot takes about Representative Tulsi Gabbard and her presidential ambitions. And they all have a common thread: fear amongst people who don't support Tulsi Gabbard that she will in fact run as a third-party candidate. And I just don't see it, which I hope to explain why in this video. But I wanna give you an example of what form these come in. So take a look at this. You'll see a long video, an interview getting into it with a panel about how Hillary Clinton suggests that Tulsi Gabbard's being groomed as a third-party candidate, which was news for like a week or two. You've got, on the Hill, Gabbard stokes fear among Democrats, and it's really all over the place. This concern that we're gonna take a look and a particular statement or a particular tweet or a particular action or a particular way of campaigning, all of it secretly means that although she says she's serious about running as a Democrat, she in fact is just going to run as a third party candidate. And what might that do to the 2020 election? And I don't share those concerns because I've looked at the actual evidence, and she has been incredibly clear about third-party candidacies. And so let's take a look at something. This is just back at the end of August, just a little bit ago. Here she is.
Earlier this month, you told our political reporter Caitlin Huey-Burns that you would support the Democratic nominee if you end up not winning the primary. Is there any policy a Democratic nominee could hold that would persuade you not to endorse them in the general election?
No, I am, as are all of the other candidates that I'm aware of running for president, committed to defeating Donald Trump in 2020. I look forward and hope to be able to earn that nomination myself, but if not, then I'll join with others in making sure that that happens.
So that video is just like a month and a half old, and it is incredibly clear, unambiguous. And by the way, the question wasn't just, will you support the eventual Democratic nominee if you're not the nominee? It was, is there anything that this nominee could do that would cause you not to? And she said, no. Like all of them, I will support whoever it is if it's not me. That's unambiguous, and it's not just in that video. She was on a podcast. This is just, I think in the last week. She was on the Angry Americans with Paul Rieckhoff podcast and asked about this. She said, I will not run as a third-party candidate. No. My interest and goal is not to just leave the party and run separately. As I've said, my goal is to actually strengthen the party. And I would say that that might actually be literally the most progressive thing about Tulsi Gabbard, is this belief that we don't simply leave the party if we don't like what it currently looks like, we make it better from inside. That is why when I say the name Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, you know who that is. Because although she had a lot of issues with the Democratic Party and continues to this day, she ran in a Democratic primary and won, and now she's changing the party from the inside out. If she'd run as a third-party candidate against Joe Crowley, she would have lost and you wouldn't know who she is. And Tulsi Gabbard is following that same strategy, the AOC, the Bernie Sanders strategy of changing the party from within. So look, these are not the only times that she has responded to questions about running as a third-party candidate incredibly unambiguously and said that she wouldn't. There are others, but this is enough. And I know what some of you are saying, but she's not running for re-election in the House, and that's really suspicious. And I get what you're saying, but there are other explanations why she might not run for re-election. And I know you might be thinking, well, okay, yes, those quotes are unambiguous, but she could still change her mind. And yes, technically that could happen. And considering how unambiguous she's been year after year on this topic, if she were to change her mind and run as a third-party candidate, that she would have no credibility whatsoever. Every actual progressive would have it on them to denounce her because she has been so clear about what would actually be accomplished by her running as a third-party candidate. But she's not doing that. And so these fears really seem misplaced. And the thing is, it's not a new thing. Like, I don't know why you're not supposed to talk about the 2016 election and how progressives voted in that way. Like, you're supposed to pretend that they didn't, but you might remember 2016, Bernie Sanders campaigned for Hillary Clinton after the primary was over. Okay, he gets attacked for not doing that, he did. And Tulsi Gabbard also supported Hillary Clinton in the general election. Here she is talking about this in August 2016. Given the remaining choices, like Bernie Sanders, I will be casting my vote for Hillary Clinton. Because she didn't want Donald Trump to become president, and she knew that voting in any other way does not lower the chance that Donald Trump becomes president. And so, look, people like to think that's an inconvenient truth. You're not supposed to acknowledge that. But she was loyal to her party in 2016. There is no reason to believe that she will not be now. And look, honestly, let's say you were to discount all of this. Let's say, let's not listen to what she said. Let's not look at what she's done. But what if she did anyway? What if she ran? The fear, of course, is founded in a belief that it would increase the chance that Donald Trump gets reelected. But honestly, I don't even think that that's necessarily proven. First of all, third-party candidate support is more complex than most people seem to think. A ballot access expert, Richard Winger, said, "These people who throw around spoiler are ignorant of the research that contradicts their thinking. It just drives me crazy. There's all this sophisticated psychological research and historical data that gets ignored, and people just assume that a Green Party candidate or somebody like that hurts Democrats automatically. And it's just not that clear. It's not clear at all that people who support a third-party candidate would, in the absence of that candidate, vote some other way or indeed vote at all. And you can look into that research too. And even if your concerns are specific to Tulsi Gabbard, who again has said that she wouldn't do this, if she did, if you actually go into the crosstabs, for instance, I looked at a recent survey that just came out in the last couple of days where she was doing a little bit better in the Democratic primary than previously. If you look at her favorability, for instance, broken down into different groups, what you see there doesn't imply that she would draw a ton of focus away from the Democratic nominee. It actually implies that it might go the opposite way. Her favorability rating in the primary amongst people who support her is more than twice as high for self-described Republicans than Democrats. It's more than twice as high for self-described conservatives as liberals. And so if she were to actually run, which again, she says that she won't, it might be that it's a bit of a wash or could even hurt Donald Trump in some areas, that disaffected Republicans who like Tulsi Gabbard on one or another of issues, perhaps foreign policy, which is her hallmark issue, might actually choose to support her rather than supporting the Republican nominee. So look, best case scenario for people who are really worried about this is that it's a complicated issue, but far more likely, she's been incredibly clear about what she actually plans to do if she doesn't get the nomination. And so I think that we can at least wait and see and not hyperventilate in the lead up to that. Check out the Damage Report podcast each day, wherever you get your podcasts, whether Pocket Casts or Stitcher or iTunes. You can join me as I give you the news and stories you want, with a range of co-hosts and interview guests jumping in on the fun each day. Again, that's the Damage Report, wherever you get your podcasts. And if you get them at iTunes, don't forget to rate and review. Sometimes I'll read them live on the show.